Kia ora koutou to everyone for joining us today. It's lovely to see so many of you from around Aotearoa joining us online. I'm really excited for our two presentations today, which are part of our theme over Matariki in June and July in celebrating design in Te Ao Māori, profiling Māori designers and creatives, and hearing from them in respect to their journeys, and also perspectives on design and thought leadership articles, as well as case studies on the website. So this online event today sees us wrap up this theme over this week and into early next week. So thank you very much for joining us today, Te Kani and also Jade. And I'm going to hand it over very quickly to our first presenter, Te Kani, who is calling in from Puaneki and works for Huia Publishing. So we'll have this first presentation, and if you'd like to pop any questions into the Q&A panel, and then directly following this first presentation, we will ask those questions before handing it over to our second presenter, Jade. So I'll put my screen and audio, turn that off, and I'll ask you, Te Kani, to share your screen and turn your audio on, and hand it over to you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Louise. Kia ora koutou. My name is Te Kani, and I'm, as was said, I'm the creative director at Huia Publishers. I'll just jump my screen on for you. So, first of all, thank you everybody for coming to listen to my story, I guess. Classic Māori gag. The brief was to talk about one project, but I'm going to talk about two and have my life story in it as well. So we'll run up the 10 minutes and see how we go. So where I want to start is this slide here. 978,000 is the amount of Māori that were recorded in the census just recently. And the work that we do at Huia, we are storytellers, and we bring either clients or authors ideas, visions, or how to see Aotearoa into the light, I guess. And we saw that number, and that's hugely exciting for us. It's nearly 1 million individual stories, 1 million different whakapapas, but also 1 million different customers that we're going to have buying patterns, habits, all of that sort of thing on the economy. So it's hugely exciting. We've been around for about 30 years, and I've been with Huia for 10. And sort of in that time, we've put this is just a handful of the storytellers and the faces of the portion of the culture, I guess, that's got something to say. There's a whole lot of different areas, a lot of different mātauranga, and all sorts represented in there. I was also lucky enough to work on Jade's book Checkerboard Hill recently as well. So I just want to give you a sense of the nature of the work we do. It predominantly sits in either commercial publishing or work that is for students or educators within the school system, both in English and Te Reo Māori. But before I sort of jump into the projects, to set the scene, when I started at Huia, I'd come back from Australia where I'd studied, and I was learning. It was the start of my journey about learning about Te Ao Māori and how it might impact me. I was a little bit nervous to start the job, but one of the lessons, I guess, to get from this talk is that when you kind of design for the culture designs you back. So when I started, all I knew is that the word Kani was short for Kani, and that meant to dance. And I mean, I like to dance, but I didn't know if that was worth naming me the dance. But it's also a good start to the first project, Dazzle Hands. So Dazzle Hands released, I think, last year, and it's a children's illustrated story. We've done Dazzle Hands in English and Ringa Koreko in Māori. It was the fourth pairing of us, the author and the illustrator. And the story is, I guess, a play on all of the animals make sounds except for Pig. Pig's got his own ideas about what he wants to do. And so the brief was how to sort of turn that story into something that was relevant and reflective of Aotearoa, and really bringing different kind of cultural threads into the story so that it would be something particular or specific to Aotearoa, but for a general audience. So as with any kind of book, you start with concepts, and these were the original kind of characters and things that had come through. The idea was that Pig should be friendly but kind of nondescript, and has this sort of Sasha Fierce moment when he's asked what sound he makes, and it turns into a rap or a disco break or something really, really expressive. And so we pushed the concepts a little bit further, and we kind of wanted to bring both international references, because culture kind of doesn't happen in a backyard or a vacuum. It's an amalgamation of so many different things. That still is expressive, but it's still a little bit Aotearoa in New Zealand as well. One of the kind of key points of this book is Pig has got these magical hands. They're hooves, but in the book they're hands. And we kind of wanted to bring some of the Māori pattern work through the illustrations, through like almost as superpowers. It was something that the illustrator was a little bit nervous to engage with, and it's because the patterns of Te Ao Māori are their own language, and some of them have very specific meanings. Some of them are a bit more generic. The way that we approached this facet of the project is that we asked the illustrator to kind of design these different pattern sets almost from his own experiences, but to bring a bit of understanding as to what he was trying to communicate, and what we could do on our side as the publisher is to retool or to provide feedback that might help convey that message a little bit more. With some of the patterns, they're they have more generic meanings, and so they almost act as letters, and the job of the artist is to create words with those letters, but also to create movement, to create attitude, and so these breeds the kind of the final result of going through some of those steps. And we were really, really happy with the result. I think one of the lessons I learned from this project, I had this kind of saying a while ago that art kind of asks questions and design answers them. But when you kind of create commercial products, you kind of can't control what the answers are that people get from your material. And so with this particular book, it's taken on a life of its own. There's what we always hope for with our kids' books is that children and parents pick them up and kind of fall in love with them. But Also, where we got to was last week, the Royal New Zealand Ballet, they were obsessed with this book. And so during the school holidays, had kind of produced a ballet about the story and really tried to embody these characters and kind of give it a life of its own. Um, and so it was fun. Everybody wants the outfits, all of the sequins and the sparkles. But that's that project. Cut back to my journey, I guess. Another way of looking at the word te Kani is one of our translators at work. He'd given me the nickname of the chainsaw, and it's because I kind of cut stuff out of briefs and um, kind of got projects on the go. And it's sort of one that's I guess associated with carving and the tile in terms of whittling down some of the original materials into something a bit more polished and refined. So with that in mind, I guess I'll go to a completely different illustrated book. This is also a commercial book, and it was released about a month ago. Um, and this one is written by Elizabeth Gray and illustrated by the crazy talented Rehua Wilson. And it's a story about Hinero Katodi, who's this it's like a chrysalis, like a moth, and she goes to the different atua right at the beginning before the separation of Rangi and Papa, looking to find her voice. And each of the atua give a different gift. One might be rhythm, one might be tone, and together that creates her voice. And through that process becomes a putorino, which is an instrument uh, in in Māori music. What was difficult about this project is that each of the atua also correlated to a different member of a group of taonga puoro artists, Māori musical artists. And so we started, I guess, with their figures, but how to blend them with atua themselves, which are not necessarily human, but they're not necessarily tangible, and they have a dominion, and you have all of these different threads to kind of pull on. So we started with the faces, and then started to bring in some of the more poetic elements of it, that the patterns would rush over them and kind of show this connection to Hinero Katodi, which is on the right. Even the colors were quite important. The use of magenta was, I guess, the head chakra, and so kind of having that element into the meaning of the story was important as well. Bringing in the text, this one was a tricky project in that most of the time with Māori text, you don't really break it up and you don't create a whole lot of movement through it. And it's because even the syllables in the words have meaning, and so you don't want to misconstrue what all of those things are. So what was quite helpful is that this is a repetitive kind of poetic prose. And so there was room to have this sort of movement, to also have kind of a showing of call and response, and also this kind of giving of gifts. And so that one is also out. It's only in Te Reo Māori. Most of the time we do them in English and Māori, but for this particular story, it felt written specifically for a Māori speaking audience, those who are kind of connected to the culture and to taonga puoro. So we did this as a service for a more niche element of the Māori audience. I guess from these two projects, there's a million Māori, and they're all going to express their identity, their culture really, really differently. And they're going to have outside influences as well. What we do as Huia and as designers here is kind of working out who's the kaisiaki of that mātauranga, and what's the best way to reflect their task or their their voice through all of these, and to make sure that it's packaged in a way that the audience who receives it, they get the right answer that they to the question that they're asking. I guess to sort of sign off, where I'm at the moment is another variation of Te Kani is to kind of cut but to cut and sew and rearrange and reposition. And it's been hugely moving for me because I think that's what I do in my day to day is to do that either with words or stories or code. And it's sort of where I'm at in my journey. I'm sure if you ask me again, there'll be another definition. But that's my kōrero. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thanks so much, Kani. It's just beautiful, even seeing like a couple of different projects and how different they look. Do you produce them? Are they all digitally designed, or is some of it, can you have some kind of analog, like illustrated and painted work as well?
I think we're open to both, but generally digital, and that's more so just for finessing different elements and things. You end up with a couple of design rounds. We have done a few analog media, but you feel terrible asking the illustrator to fix a thing that might cost them 40 hours to.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And such contemporary use of color palettes as well. Just loved Dazzle Pig, and the fact that then it's been transposed into a ballet, and it just that impact on the culture of our country as well. That must have been really rewarding to see that go into a different discipline.
Yeah. I was there at Te Papa on Friday, and it was a sellout. Like the line was huge, and there's a bunch of adults that were there for it. There was a bunch of kids. It's something that kind of just pushed the generic story along a little bit more, but was uniquely from here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we've got a few questions. So here's a question from Ola, and their question is, can a non-Māori designer use generic Māori motifs in their work?
I think there's a quote that's really resonated with me through my practice, and it's proximity breeds empathy. And so what I mean by that in relation to the question is that while the patterns themselves might be a bit more generic, you probably still want someone to help you navigate through. So even though you've got the letters, you might not be able to construct the words as such. So very similar to the advice we gave the illustrator. Have a go and bring your intention to them, but then have someone kind of verify to make sure that what you've produced is what you're trying to say as well.
Cool. Here's another question. How do you know when the work has reached the point that it's at its best rather than continuing to iterate, but probably sometimes irritate the designer?
It's a mixture. I mean, perfect's the enemy of sending anything to print. But I think we design with manaakitanga, but we also kind of design with mahitahi. So me as the creative director, I'll sign off on the kind of visuals and the coherence of the material, but the author is still involved to make sure it aligns with their vision and the voice that they want to have. Our kind of cultural advisory team will look through it right the way through to like just general IP of things to make sure that the marae we've illustrated is happy with the representation of their tipuna kind of thing. I think having all of those is kind of there, but there's definitely the 2% that you go, nah, send.
Yeah. Another question, how did you get a job working in publishing rather than in a design agency or studio?
Yeah. So I started in Australia, and I was doing, I guess, a more traditional design journey. I was doing branding and campaigns and that sort of thing. I don't know that I was looking for publications and books. I definitely had that in my kind of whānau history, but all I wanted was a job to be where I could be creative kind of 9 to 5. Have a team that have HR, have someone that can sort the invoicing and things out, but be able to be creative. And at the time I was feeling homesick and wanting to kind of reconnect with my culture, and this was the one that came up. So it was more about the audience and the purpose than it was necessarily the media.
Yeah, so in that respect, what I'm hearing is it's in terms of like how you wanted to live and your values.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
very much
yeah.
so. It was there's so many things that happen at Huia as a workplace that kind of just might not happen in any other workplace. Like we have a lot of shared meals, like we're singing a lot of songs, that it has such a different it takes on a different guise. We have a lot of international kind of visitors and things like that, and it's always quite moving for them to see Māori culture so normalized. Um, and I think that's what I was looking for too, like a little bit of a sanctuary.
Beautiful. I'm an illustrator. How would I get into illustrating for books?
Oh, right. Um, it's tough.
Mm.
Um, what we usually do with our illustrators that we work with, we'll kind of seek them out on Instagram and different portfolio spaces. Um, we'll start them with a cover or like an icon set or something like that. Like let's get we're a bit more relationship based.
Mm.
Um, and we try and build up a bit of a stamina. Illustrating for books is difficult, particularly if you've got repeating characters. Consistency, outfits, all of that sort of thing is the thing that takes a while. And it's a long process. It's half a year to kind of go from start to finish, and there's a lot of frustration in the middle of it, I guess. And so start small, and kind of build the stamina up. Be
Mm.
the way to go.
Mm. Okay, I think we'll maybe answer a couple of more questions. Let's see. Bryce says it's great to see so many Māori run agencies and creatives. Are there Māori run printers or printing companies that you could recommend so we can
Oh,
support them? Hmm.
for sure. Uh, I guess none that I've come across actually. I've we've got our regular providers here, but it's not something that's been uh, prevalent.
Hmm.
But granted, we haven't looked deeply into that particular supplier. I think as a business, one of our overall strategies, though, is to have that whole um, production pipeline, either Māori owned or as close to as we
Hmm.
can. But um, it'll take time.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, here is one more. Understanding that trade books have different constraints to say instructional resources, what is the thinking or considerations behind using all caps as far as readability and or accessibility?
Yeah, for sure. In that regard, yeah, the work that we would do in education, we probably wouldn't get away with having all caps like that. And this was one that the team felt, how do we distinguish between Hine Rangatauri and the Atua, particularly during this the separation event. So in this instance, we picked an all caps one to kind of have this almost comic book feel of like this resounding um, authoritative voice. Have we practiced that in terms of accessibility? No, no. Um, but we're always interested to kind of get that feedback as well. Sometimes the books might be read by um, parents, and then some of them might be kind of the child reads them themselves, and there will be different rules in that regard. Um, but yeah, short answer, it was a commercial one, so threw some of the rules to the wind.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, ngā mihi, thank you so much for sharing your mahi. You've been very honest in sharing with so much knowledge, and you can see that level of knowledge that you have in this area, so we really appreciate that, and it was lovely to see a couple of your projects. So now we'll introduce our second speaker. So if you'd like to turn off your sound and video. Kia ora, Jade.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Jade works in urban and architectural design, and you're based in Whangarei, your hometown. But today you're joining us from Tamaki Makaurau and the lovely winter weather.
And I've controversially chosen to present projects that are not architectural at all. So,
yes.
But I think will be relevant to this audience and pair nicely with what the Kani has shared.
So I'll let you share your screen and present your projects. And if you'd like to ask questions, just pop those into the Q&A panel. Kia ora. Thank you, Jade.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, tēnā koutou. Thanks for joining us for a little lunchtime chat. I've put my slides on auto transition because I know that I have too many, so this will keep me rolling along Pecha Kucha style. As Louise said, my name is Jade Kake. I'm from Ngāpuhi, and I live and work in Whangarei, although I'm in Auckland working quite a lot as well. And my real design kind of area is architecture, but I dabble in some other things. And I thought this book about Rewi Thompson would be a really interesting thing to show to you all, because myself and my friend Jeremy Hanson, we were the co-authors and I think kind of curators of this really, huge but really exciting book with an amazing cast of collaborators. And so it's kind of an interesting situation, and probably designers make terrible clients, but I like to think this was a really happy collaboration. And so Jeremy and I were the co-authors, and Tyrone Ohia and Eva Charlton and the team at Extended Whānau designed the book. And this is Rewi Thompson, who was the basis for this project. And it's many layers, because actually Rewi obviously was an architect, and he left an incredible archive of drawings. And there was photographs of his built work. We redrew some of his plans. We had beautiful historic, archival kind of photos, and we did lots of interviews and research. And so we kind of built up this many layered approach. And I think from the first kind of moment when we met with Tyrone, he really got the vision and got what we were trying to do. And so we'd kind of talk about, what that vision was, and we didn't want this to be definitive, and we wanted to look at Rewi as a multifaceted human being, and not only as an architect, and not just be obsessed with objects, but think about him, as a thinker, as an educator, the kind of impact that he's had on architecture in New Zealand, which we felt was not widely understood and known outside of those who knew him directly. And all of the kind of important architects of the kind of leading generation, these are his peers, and they all really respected him and had collaborated with him. But if you didn't work in architecture, lots of people didn't know who Rewi was. And so he was kind of this silent superstar in a way. If you knew, you knew. But we felt that he didn't really get his dues in some ways, and we really wanted to celebrate the incredible impact that he had in a holistic way. And again, Tyrone really got that vision. So where did we start? I've just shown some slides of the book itself, and these were beautifully photographed by Tyrone or one of his team members, but definitely someone from Extended Whānau who then sent them to us. So you get a bit of a taste of the different sections and the kind of approach that's been taken, the visual language. And then I thought I would talk through a little bit of the process once we get through these slides around the book itself. But you can even see it with the open book that there's different sections marked by different colors. And so we tried to set up a bit of a hierarchy and an order, and using color as that ordering device. And so the pink came really naturally. So in a number of the interviews that we did, people talked about Rewi turning up with a pink highlighter, which, in architecture, what a controversial choice. We're all about, felt tip pens that are the right kind of, 0.2, 0.5, whatever, and, fancy art markers. And we're, definitely not using highlighters. But everyone had this story, a different story, but many stories about this pink highlighter, and Debbie just being this kind of unconventional thinker and not being limited by what you're supposed to do. And so immediately we knew we wanted the pink to be a highlight. But I had originally thought we'd pair it with black until we kind of had this conversation and told some pink highlighter stories. And then Tyrone comes back with a mock-up of the cover and he's like, what about this? And it was pink and blue. And I was like, actually, this really works. This is very cool. And we all got really excited by it. As I mentioned briefly before, it started with the archive. So Rewi's daughter, after he passed away, donated the majority of his drawings to the University of Auckland archive, which is where he taught. And they hadn't really been sorted out yet. So we got to go in and rummage through folders. It took a long time. And there was drawings like this, which is a drawing of his own house in Kohimarama. And there was just like amazing conceptual drawings. There was also like boring drawings of house alterations, and it wasn't ordered in a particular way. It was all kind of, you just don't know what you're going to discover. This was in a folder of labeled Koha with these fantastical kind of cityscapes, dreamscapes, and some of them relate to real projects and some of them are just fantastical and we don't know the context. These really captured our imagination, and I'll come back to these because they informed the sort of spin-off accompanying project that followed. And there was a lot of conceptual drawings where he kind of worked through ideas through sketches. And I think he had a complex relationship with being Māori, but he was bringing a lot of his own thinking and worldview into the way he practiced architecture, and that became more and more apparent as he progressed through his career, which I think also coincidentally, or not coincidentally, coincided with the Māori Renaissance. And here's some of his sketchbooks. So he left behind heaps of these, and we had the privilege of going through them all and finding different sketches, and we featured a lot of them in the book. We couldn't feature as much as we wanted because our publisher told us you need to cut X many pages. And we also used them in the exhibition, which is the spin-off project I'll talk about. And there were photos of models. This model was a project he actually did while he was still a student called Ngāti Pōne Ke Marae that won a few really distinguished awards. And we actually recreated the model. So remember this project as well. Now's a good time for a sip of water. And there were also magazines from, historic kind of archival magazines. So this was about a project that he did at Unitec called Te Pūkenga that's still there. And then there were also magazine spreads of his own writing, which will be the next one. But it's really great because they really unpack the design and the concept. And some of these magazine articles also had some really interesting critical writing. And so this one had some really great kind of some conceptual sketches. And you really get a sense of who he was as a person and his unique kind of way of thinking and communicating. He didn't write a lot, but the things that he wrote, we tried to reproduce within the book. We also got new photography done, as well as recommissioning archival photography where we could get it. Sometimes it was a little magical mystery tour, and we didn't find what we were looking for because the negatives were gone or had been thrown away or something. And we've talked to 5 people that used to work at the magazine and none of them have it. But we did pretty well. And I also redrew a bunch of the plans just in a kind of simple, consistent graphic style. And why I'm kind of going over all these points is because this was the content that we kind of just had in our hands and dumped on the desk of the designers, metaphorically. It was in a digital folder, but we're like, okay, well, here's all the things that we want in it, and here's the structure. And this is another one where there was just the consent drawing. So obviously the one on the left is not really suitable to go in the book. It's just distracting, whereas I'd rather people focus on his really amazing conceptual drawings. So you shouldn't really notice my drawings. It should just guide you through the project. And this was our sort of master spreadsheet that we also used to communicate with the designers. So we're kind of, building the plane as we were flying it. So they were very accommodating with big missing sections that we were still working through. And things changed as we went along, but we tried to structure everything thematically. And then within it, we went in chronological order in terms of projects. And so here's the kind of original concept for the cover, which features Dewi's own signature, as well as one of his sketches of his house in Kohimarama. Again, this was like a strike of brilliance from Tyrone, is that we took a number of Dewi's own drawings and digitized them, and they formed the cover and the kind of section markers. Really strong pink and blue palette. And then this one is, we didn't quite end up doing this, we did change it, but the general idea, and this is where we started, was that we would use the arrangement in different sections to kind of break up the book, and so use that kind of visual language to guide the reader through the book. So we had interviews that weren't connected with the project, we had project-specific chapters, and then we had notes and ephemera, which was like diagrams and sketches. And we also had some creative responses, which I haven't included here, but they were really cool because we took some of the fantastical images and then shared them. This is just showing the design iteration from like first pages through to third. So you can see information keeps getting added. So we added a whakatauki, and then we went pink, and then we had some of Dewi's drawings as an illustration. And this one went through 2 iterations where we hadn't committed to the color, and then we're like, okay, yep, it's going to be blue, so that better be white. And these are all kind of simple choices, but the point is we kind of worked up to third pages, and then we did final pages. So we kept iterating, we would find out the missing content, we'd make changes where it wasn't quite working. It was really collaborative. Oh yeah, and it won a cool award. And we're really proud of the team. We didn't get in for the Ockham, so I was like, well, we better win some design awards at least. So this was quite gratifying. It's a visually very stunning book. And then the next project is a spin-off, really, because we approached Object Space and was like, hey, we're doing this book, can we do an exhibition too? And they said, yeah, I'd love to. And so they were really collaborative and awesome, and we're able to organize to borrow some of the works from the archive, as well as borrow some notebooks from Lucy, Dewi's daughter, and then also make some new items in the space with, a team of expert makers. And yeah, it was a really raging successful exhibition. I think on the opening night, so this is the layout, which I now realize I left off the labels. So that's okay, because you're going to see the photos now. So you can see there's a large mural. There's some framed works that came from the archives. There's a new reproduction in vinyl on the wall of Ngāti Pōneke Museum. There's a reproduced Ngāti Pōneke Museum model in the signature pink and blue. I forget, vitrines, I think is the name of those cabinets. Anyway, we've got drawings that we selected and notebooks for those. We've got the bright pink feature wall, which was really strong. Some more framed works. And this model is really incredible. Now, I'm getting his name right. Stephen Brookbanks, who's like a really well-known model maker, but I didn't actually meet him in this process, but he's a genius. He worked on the model, and I don't know if someone else worked with him on that. But it was really awesome and really successful with the vinyl behind it. Some more framed images there. And then the other big in situ piece was the mural. And I also didn't meet the mural artists, but I took down their names, which I said in the little article for this, but now I don't. Hang on, I'll find them while we're enjoying these images. Because I thought their work was really magic. It's actually in pencil on the wall, which I'll show some more close-up ones shortly. So it was Ross Liu and Margarita Bovna. And they, and it just looks like Larry's pencil drawing, but it's been reproduced in a large scale. So it's just like the hidden, like, talented creatives behind it all. And interesting experience for me and for Jeremy, because we were like the curators, but it just meant that we decided what went in it. And we didn't actually have to do any of the heavy lifting, really, which is in contrast to me when I've tried to be an artist and I had to do absolutely everything. So it was a very privileged position to see your creative vision come to life with a team of like really talented people. And it was Michael McCabe who designed the exhibition. So again, we picked what we wanted to go in it. And then he worked out how it was going to go in the space, and we fed back and we worked through it together. So this was where there was 4 sort of original concepts. And then we kind of picked a few elements from each that we thought were really working. And then we kind of moved on to develop design. by now the really strong color palette had come through, as you can see, and the elements had started to settle, but still a few things did change even when we were installing, which is really normal. But this is where we kind of got to, and it was really focused on his amazing speculative work. And some of it was built projects like his own house, but it has a speculative quality. So we thought, yeah, that's allowed. And there's a bit of, mixture of models. There was also a TV screen that had an interview with Dewi from a TV, was the TV show called Koha? Was the episode called Koha? Anyway, really amazing archival footage that the talented team Object Space managed to get a hold of, which I was in awe of. This is the mural artist during the mural work, which if you get up close, it was just astounding. I spent a lot of time here because it went for almost a couple of months. And we had a rager of an opening and also a pre-opening. So the pre-opening had about 200 people. And the rager of an opening, there's close up with it. He had these really cool dinosaurs inside the buildings for scale, perhaps. People ask, and I actually don't know because, how do we know how big a T-Rex is in this current day and age? But you can see the little people. Yeah, and then the official opening had like 500 people. So it was pretty wild, really well attended. Really well supported by the architecture community. And I think that's all my slides. So, having a timer really works. Kia ora koutou.
Beautiful. Thanks for walking us through that. I just love seeing those process drawings and those kind of imaginings that, you can start to see a glimpse of potentially his thinking and philosophy, and you want them as kind of pieces of fine art, I think, really.
Yeah, we also made these little postcards, which were really neat. So you could take them home. So we picked out some of the images. And I wrote these wacky little poems in Te Reo because I was allowed to do what I wanted. And then I provided some text in English that wasn't a translation. So that was fun.
So this project, you were kind of doing it alongside other day-to-day projects. And did you get funding to oversee it, or how did it come about?
Bit of a combination. So the book we got funding for. So I was fortunate to get the NZSA, CLNZ, that's all acronyms, but Society of Authors and Copyright Licensing New Zealand. Anyway, they have an annual grant of 25K, which I fortunately got in 2021. And then we also got about 10K from Warren Trust and almost 10K from the oral history funding. So that kind of covered us for the book. The exhibition Object Space got the money. So they made it happen, and they decided what we could afford or not. So we just, went along for the ride with that. We had a lot of input, but they're just pros. They're really good.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and it's such a valuable contribution to archiving Aotearoa design as well. So I have to get a copy of it. I haven't got one for the shelf.
I mean, you won't get bored of it. There's so much in it. It's like a really good coffee table book.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We've got a few questions here. So how long did the book take to produce from collating and design to production?
4 years.
Whoa, yeah.
But it was like, if you did a little graph, it would be like little.
Yeah.
And then like a little bit, because that was when we started going back and forth about the idea through to when it actually was published. So it did take that long, but there's, it wasn't consistent 4 years of work. I mean, we both had day jobs. It wasn't, sole, whatever.
Yeah, amazing. Can you explain the use of, did you explain the use of pink to readers or visitors at any point? Personally, I love hearing the rationale behind such choices.
I don't know if maybe we mentioned it in some of the talks, but it was definitely threaded through the book because different people mentioned it in the interviews. So it was like a recurring motif. I mean, I guess we chose what eventually ended up in there, but we did notice because of the questions we were asking, that would lead on to the line of questioning for future interviews, and then the information we're curating. We ended up with some really great sort of lines of inquiry running all the way through the book.
And also you could sell branded highlighters as a merch.
The whakaaro pai tēnā, love that.
And yeah, it was beautiful to see those drawings up large as well, just at that different scale. The dinosaurs, hilarious.
It's really cool. And that's not the only drawing it's in lots of them.
Yeah, lovely, beautiful. Did you kind of have some kind of key learnings for yourself along this journey in terms of your practice, or?
Just, I guess, understanding being in a different role. Not that I think like I'm a nightmare client that's like, I need to be the designer because I am a designer, but I was really aware of what hat I was wearing. So I wouldn't just be like, Tyrone sends me something and then I just Photoshop and be like, here's what I want. Like I didn't do that kind of thing. We just communicated and he really got it. So, but I didn't want to overextend because I know design, but it's like, well, yeah, that's fine, but that's not your job in this. So, like be a good client. With what I tried to remind myself, I guess maybe creative direction is like being a good client. You have to really know what you want, but you also have to respect that you're in this role and not in this other role in this project. But that was probably the main learning, and that, just lean on people who've got more talent in specific areas than you. Like, I don't know how to make a model as good as Stephen or do those amazing mural arts, but surely I can decide what goes on there and then leave it to those talented, craftspeople and individuals to be able to bring that to life.
Yeah. And was that direction, that visual direction, the only direction that was presented, or were there some kind of other pathways at the very start of the process?
You mean in terms of the book or the exhibition or both?
Well, I guess it started with the book, right? So it was quite like, it feels like the response in terms of the color palette, like really led the energy of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And the speculative work, which really kind of shaped that response. Yeah, I mean, I think you start a project and you've got a lot of freedom. So we just got to start on a little mystery tour and check out drawings and make a loose structure and start interviewing people. And then they go, oh, have you talked to so-and-so? And then suddenly it sort of starts grouping thematically. So I think in terms of structure and approach and how we want to tell this story, telling this story in terms of layers, that was stuff that we had control over. But again, that just formed our brief for our designers. So because we're already at that point, but not too far, they really got what we were trying to do and then tried to mirror or extend on that through the design.
Great. We've got one more question here. Did you have to raise additional funding to pay the book designers and printers?
Yeah, that was the money I was just talking about.
Yeah.
So we worked with Massey University Press and Nicola Leggett was our publisher. And so they brought a baseline kind of amount of money to the project. But if we didn't raise additional funds, we wouldn't have been able to choose our designers because we couldn't afford them on the budget that was set, which, is fine. I'm not criticizing that, but we just knew if we wanted our dream team designers that we'd selected, we needed extra money. And Nicola was really flexible around that. So we made it work, but I don't think we could have gotten Tyrone and team if we didn't find some of our own money as well.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions specifically for Jade? I've got one question here, which both Kani and Jade could talk to, I think. So this question is, when you design for a culture, this is in reference to Kani's comment, when you design for a culture, the culture designs you. So this person's wondering if that could work across culture. A Pacifica designer, as a Pacifica designer, could you learn the visual culture of Māori and use it confidently, or would that have risk around authenticity and integrity?
Can I have a go at that one first?
Yeah.
Because it just comes up in our work a fair bit. Not like, because we do a lot of cultural narrative integration on big, commercial and education kind of projects, civic project. Anyway. And so what that usually means is there might be like a mainstream architect, as well as ourselves doing kind of the cultural design components, plus a client who's usually Pākehā government agency, Pākehā leadership, and then like our hapu. Anyway, many intersections of power, it's challenging. But I think what often happens is and we often work with artists as well, who might have been nominated by hapu, which is complex. But I think the main thing I've learned in that area when it comes to more traditional patterns is that there's a level of tapu associated with them. So even as a Māori, we don't just have the right to use them. Like if we're going to use traditional patterns, whether we're designers or carvers, we work with our tohunga whakaido who guides and supports us. We wouldn't just sort of go, hey, I'm Māori, this is my culture, away we go. But there are other more contemporary ways to express Māori identity and culture that still have meaning, but aren't those same, don't carry that same level of tapu or restriction. And so I think the ability to recognize the difference is really important. And it applies to things like tā moko as well. Like, this is really carries a lot of restriction, but the designs on my hands, they don't carry that same level of restriction, but it would be for a kaita to be able to tell you the difference. And same with those traditional patterns, it's really our carvers and weavers who can tell you the difference in what's safe and not safe. And to follow on from that, really interesting. So there's been for about, I don't know, it's been 15 years maybe by now, but coastal Salish and Māori carvers have been collaborating for a while. And I remember when I went over there to around Vancouver area, there was like amazing carvings. There were a mixture of coastal Salish and Māori fused together in a really creative way. But that was a respectful exchange between experts in their respective culture. And they were able to do that because they both, the two carvers, or there's more than that, but I'm just saying for one example, two carvers working together, they had the authority to be able to do that. And they would teach each other in the process. And so I guess I would encourage anybody who's not Māori, like, to think about it as a cultural exchange. And if you're an expert in your own culture and its traditional forms, then that's a great place to start learning from each other. Because I kind of think the more you know, the less willing you are to just kind of do it. Like, for instance, for us as Māori, we go, well, look, I'm not the expert I'm not the tuhunga whakaido, so I wouldn't dare just assume I can use it. Whereas, say, if you don't know anything, you might be like, oh yeah, I mean, what does it mean? Like, water, it's fine, you know, like, surely that's universal, you know. And so I think the more you know, the more cautious you are.
Yeah.
That's probably enough of an answer from me, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. It's great to hear the knowledge behind it. Thank you. Kani, did you want to add anything to that, or?
Only to tautoko what Jade had said. Yeah, it's very much it's a bit of a minefield, and the way to kind of start is to find someone to help you navigate, regardless of kind of which culture is exchanging with which. Like, it's yeah, you never know if there's multiple meanings of something, or whether you don't want to blunder through something that's tapu. You know, find someone who can help you navigate.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think that's oh, here we go. Here's one more that I think can probably be a good final question. Do you have any thoughts on, or could you recommend how you would find a partner to support you through this process?
Yep. Go to like an introductory course in carving or weaving. It's one Aotearoa. They're open to anyone.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you. Do you agree there, Kani, or do you have another additional resource, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you end up working for something that's maybe geographical based, then find out who the iwi are. They'll have everything you need to know.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you so much to both of you. You know, such different projects and practices, and it's been a pleasure seeing the beautiful work and learning more about yourselves and your journeys and your mahi and process. So yeah, we greatly appreciate that, being part of this talk. I'll just do my little...
Before you do, can I
yes.
say one more thing, which is, I mentioned that before, but shout out to Rehua Wilson, who also did the cover for my novel. And I really wanted to work on my next project. I actually haven't met her in person either, but she's got an architectural background like me as well. And like, she's who I would have picked if Hoya didn't pick her for me. So I was like, that's who I would have picked. She's just a superstar, and just really, really respect and love her work.
Yeah,
beautiful.
She's the go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate hearing from our two speakers today. It's been fantastic. And we also have articles, interviews with both of them on the website if you'd like to read more. Hope you've all enjoyed that, and hope you have a lovely afternoon. Ngā mihi, and see you next time. Thank you.